The one thing I love the most about doing this channel is how it allows me to find smaller, more unique titles and share them with yourselves. It gives me a small platform to champion these games and recommend them to like-minded people. But one thing I've been thinking of for a little while now is how do I share games that I found that aren't out yet? Games that are at the prototype stage, or games that have playable demos but are probably still quite a way off being completed. And when I was thinking of possible ways to talk about these games, I kept thinking about demo discs. Demo discs meant a lot to me growing up. They were a source of entertainment that was relatively cheap. I've spoken a lot in my mid-tier masterpieces series about how games I really loved as a child were bought second-hand, and alongside those titles, demo discs also gave me a lot of content for a relatively low amount of money. I would buy PC Gamer every month, and that magazine would come with a demo disc. And that disc wouldn't just contain demos for high-profile upcoming releases, things like Unreal Tournament 2004. It would also feature demos for games I'd never heard of, experiences that I would never have discovered if it wasn't for this demo disc. I would never have discovered childhood favourites like Monopoly Tycoon if it wasn't for demos on discs like these. The thing is as well, the discs contained more than just demos. Sometimes they would contain full games, homebrew indie titles that were developed by one or two people and were packaged on the disc as an added bonus. There'd also be mods for things like Doom, loads of tools, screensavers, wallpapers, screenshots, videos, things like that. These days we don't need demo discs. The internet allows us to download demos directly via digital storefronts, but there's something lost about that tailored collection of demos that were provided free with magazines or Pizza Hut. So, when I thought to myself, how can I demonstrate upcoming releases in an interesting way on the channel, I thought to myself, what if I tried to capture the spirit of demo discs in a digital format? To provide the thrill of unpacking a CD from the cover of a magazine and popping it into your computer to uncover all of the delights it held within. So the result of that thought process is this, the Indie Demo Disc, a series I'll do from time to time where I'll talk about prototypes, demos, mods for existing games, and also full games that are available for free that I want to talk about but wouldn't dedicate an entire video to. I'll spend some time compiling a list of games together, I'll play them, I'll talk about them, but best of all, I will also provide a link to you in the description of this video so you can download them and experience them yourself. I guess it's in some form a discless demo disc, which was also one of the names I was going to use for this series, but discless demo disc is a shit name. So enough waffling, let's dive into this inaugural indie demo disc. Let's start this video with the game that made me want to make this in the first place, Grapple Hoops. Now this has been covered by a couple of different major outlets, but I first saw this on a tweet and was just immediately curious. This is a very early proof of concept prototype where the only goal is to dunk a basketball in a precariously placed hoop. You have to navigate to this hoop using some basic parkour like wall running and a very powerful grappling hook. I guess it kind of plays a bit like Mirror's Edge meets Super Hot, with a bit of Just Cause thrown in there for good measure. There's a couple of small levels to play around with, and it reloads instantly when you die, which you'll do a lot. The whole game is basically about mastering this very simple mechanic. The grapple hook gives you an enormous amount of speed and height, and the trick really is to grapple onto specific objects to fling yourself across the map as quickly as possible so you can perform a sick dunk. Right-clicking allows you to throw the ball, but when you do that, it slows down time to make it easier to aim. It even shows you where the ball will land, so it's quite easy to dunk even though you might be flying about 1,000,000 miles an hour through the level. If you're close enough to the hoop, you'll actually do a proper dunk. Your character will grab onto the hoop and everything. You can throw the ball at enemies too, and recall it into your hands with a little whistle. Even in this early stage, it really feels like the developers are trying to find as many little twists as possible with these two core mechanics of having a grapple hook and a basketball, and I really think that's where the magic of this could potentially lie in a full release. Just a bunch of levels that introduce tiny little folds that require different uses of these two core mechanics. The concept is stupid, right? But it immediately feels amazing. There's a real sense of flow to this that the developers have already nailed. The grapple is a little temperamental. Sometimes you get a wild amount of height and it's not apparent as to why. Sometimes the opposite happens too, but even at this early stage, I think the core is there, and if they just flesh that out into a full game, this would be really, really special. Oh, also it has like a really killer thumping techno soundtrack that just adds to the whole ridiculous intensity of this whole thing. Grapple Hoops is absolutely worth trying out. It rules. Sticking with the theme of fluid movement mechanics, Project Feline is another parkour-focused prototype that caught my eye. You play as this incredibly nimble anime cat girl. I really wish there was a better way of phrasing that. You can jump, double jump, air dash, wall run, rail grind, and slide in order to build up speed and move through an environment as quickly as possible. Again, like in Grapple Hoops, that core sense of movement already at this stage feels solid as a rock. It's there and it feels great. Achieving a sense of flow is really easy to do. Right now, there are two sort of game modes available to try. Both are time trials, basically. One sees you running through a bunch of shipping containers. You have to hit every checkpoint before reaching the goal. This was really good fun. It was a bit tough working out which way you had to go, but the second time round was much, much better. And the other mode is a work in progress level filled with collectible orbs. You have to find all of them before you can exit the level. This was also really, really good. It was a bit easier to navigate this level than it was in the first one, and it was basically just an obstacle course that demonstrated the game's core movement mechanics. There's also a few other tiny little example environments that sort of combine these two concepts for you to play around with. I really liked this. There's something very solid here that I think could easily be expanded into a full game. I think it would work quite well as a 3D platformer that sort of features elements from both of these modes, but I'm aware the game is being developed by just one person, so even if this just ends up as like a time trial based game with a number of environments to work your way through, that would be good too. It has a bit of a Jet Set Radio vibe to it. I really like how the main character's frame rate is lower than the rest of the game. It kind of gives it a, I don't really know what that's called. It's an effect that was used in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it works really well here. In fact, the whole game looks really good. The shipping container level, which seems to be the one that's furthest along, looks really nice. It has a pixelated style to it that works really, really well. Yeah, I liked this. I'm really interested in keeping an eye on Project Feline, and I absolutely recommend that you give that demo a try. Okay, I don't know how to say this properly. Sailos, you can see the name on the screen. I will not be saying it again because I don't know how to say it. This is a rock-hard 3D platformer that's heavily inspired by Crash Bandicoot and other 32-bit platformers from the mid-90s. Primarily, it's really trying to emulate that original Crash Bandicoot, and it nails the specific tone that's only present in that first game. It's an almost haunting tone. I can't even really describe what it is, but it's here. It's quieter, perhaps, than the other games in the series, less zany, maybe, more space to breathe. Gameplay is largely the same here as it is in Crash. You run, jump, and punch your way through a platform-heavy level. There's boars to defeat and spikes to avoid, and it is so fucking hard. Like, it's so hard. I really liked playing this, but I did feel like it didn't want me to do that. It felt like it was trying to get me to feel the opposite about it. I died so often and it didn't always feel fair. The arc of my character's jump didn't feel quite right at times, like there wasn't enough horizontal movement, and some of the hitboxes on enemies were just absolute bullshit. And this floating Fabergé egg can just fuck right off. I hate this egg, but I kept playing, and then I went back into the 2 available levels again to try and grab all of the collectibles, and that time around it didn't feel as hard as it did the first time, so that was certainly something. It felt good to play something that was so authentic to that original Crash game, a game I have a lot of nostalgia for. A lack of lives and frequent checkpoints meant that dying did feel unfair at times, but at least I was never pushed back to the very start. And visually, the game just absolutely nails it. It just looks like a PlayStation 1 game. The colours, the character models, the weird texture warping, it just looks fantastic. Screenshots on the game's itch page show a level that appears to be based around 90s screensavers. Look, I loved this and I can't wait to play more. Definitely give this a try if you have any affection for Crash Bandicoot. You will not regret it. Helva is an FPS roguelike where you play as a knight who has to fight demons in a never-ending well. Its lo-fi art style caught my eye at first. It harkens back to low-bit PC games from the late 80s. Gameplay-wise, it plays a bit like Doom crossed with Downwell. If you ever played that marvellous little indie game from a few years back, it has a great sense of verticality to each level as you try and navigate between platforms and sharp spiralling staircases while enemies fling themselves at you in great numbers. Shooting feels really good, it has a brilliant shotgun that packs a good punch, and its pistol and SMG both feel suitably fast-paced in a classic FPS kind of way. You gain XP and currency from defeating enemies, and there's a shop in each level where you can buy boosts and other bonuses. There's also a door that locks after a certain amount of time at the bottom of each level, which encourages you to fall as quickly as possible to try and reach it. Inside there's free upgrades and a way of fully replenishing your health and ammo. But best of all, there's a tiny bit of Doom 2016's DNA in here. Lower level enemies can be defeated with your melee attack to regain a bit of health. Ammo is only attainable in shops or by defeating enemies, and you even have a stamina bar which is depleted by using your melee attack. It works. It feels really good to have these elements in a roguelike shooter. I really liked its art style, which helped enhance the game's overall sense of claustrophobia. Everything just feels really tight and oppressive. You're in a well full of demons and it absolutely sucks. It definitely needs a bit of polish to its UI, which seem a bit generic to my eyes, but in general, this feels really good and very nearly there. I enjoyed this a lot. It's available to play at the moment via an invite on Steam. I'd recommend popping in a request. Regardless, I got in straight away as soon as I did so it's absolutely worth a try. Fun stuff. Even though there is literally an official John Wick game, I kind of feel like there's yet to be an experience that fully captures that sense of becoming an unstoppable, meticulous force of just pure brutality. Until now, perhaps. Fights in Tight Spaces is a turn-based strategy game with deck-building mechanics where you play as an agent fighting bad guys in tiny locations. Moves are executed by playing cards dealt to you at the start of your turn. Each round you have a limited amount of stamina, with each card requiring a specific amount of stamina in order to be played. Cards range from punches and kicks to combo-ending wall slams, alongside movement and evasion cards that allow you to position yourself out of harm's way. I haven't dug into this as much as I'd like to just yet, and this prologue demo available on Steam offers a hell of a lot of content compared to some of the other stuff I've included as part of this disc, but from what I've played so far, this is perhaps the closest a game has come to emulating that specific style of John Wick-esque action. There's a lovely crunch to attacks, with kicks and punches feeling weighty, even if enemies have hefty health bars and are more than capable of doing damage to your agent when it's their turn to strike. However, even their own attacks can be turned against them into the breach style, with careful maneuvering resulting in thugs shooting and wall slamming each other to death. Thanks to Slay the Spire, single-player deck-building games are becoming a bit of a thing at the moment, but fights in tight spaces, which I keep calling tights in fight spaces, which sounds more like a game about the locker room at a wrestling event, feels really special. Get this downloaded, have a play around, you won't regret it. And finally, let's face it, it wouldn't feel like an authentic demo disc if there wasn't at least one Doom mod on here, and Castlevania Simon's Destiny is one of the best I've played in a long time. This is a total conversion mod that reimagines every level, enemy, boss, and item from the original NES Castlevania as a first-person experience, and it's absolutely amazing. For starters, the gameplay translates to first-person way better than I expected. The whip feels really good, and you're able to gauge depth surprisingly well, considering this is a first-person game. Items such as knives and potions work really well in the context of an FPS, as do boss fights, even if they're bullshit, and I died to this bat like 15 times. I fucking hate this bat, slightly less than the Fabergé egg. It looks stunning. Exploring Dracula's castle is a visual treat with great lighting effects and beautiful pixel work, immersing you in this environment way more than ever before. Getting up close and personal with the ghouls and goblins that occupy this world is really wonderful, and whipping them into a fiery explosion feels snappy and crunchy. But best of all, it's just really authentic. You can just tell how much love and passion went into this project. The music is perfect, the mechanics feel perfect, there's chicken hidden in the wall tiles. Are you kidding me with this? This rules so much. Honestly, this is probably one of the best versions of Castlevania I've played for a long time, other than Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Honestly, Konami could release this as an official Castlevania game. It just knows what makes Castlevania so special. That feeling of whipping enemies and exploring these intense environments filled with enemies, finding secrets and defeating spooky monsters. I'm always baffled by how much mileage the modding community have gotten out of Doom, a game that is, let me remind you, 28 years old, but Simon's Destiny has absolutely floored me. I honestly can't wait to play more. It's completely free and playable using a tool called GZ Doom, which in of itself is a great thing to download, as it allows you to play through Doom and Doom 2 using mouse controls, modern resolution support, and enhanced textures. Get on this. I haven't stopped thinking about this game for days now. It absolutely rules. Hello, welcome to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this. Remember, if you're interested in any of the games I've spoken about today, there is a link in the description which will take you to all of the relevant download pages for everything I've talked about today. If you enjoyed this video, please do let me know. If you have any feedback, please do let me know if you'd like to see more of this, etc. I love doing stuff like this, and this is what I want this channel to be. I want it to be as much a platform to champion smaller experiences as it is a channel where I put my fingers in my mouth. So thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe and comment if you enjoyed it, because it really helps out. And I'll see you next Sunday at 4 PM. I don't have a way of ending videos on here, so I guess I'll just say bye.